Celebrities tend to be used in two ways in books. They could be used for cosmetic reasons, to make a page on sport look nice. We'll put a photo of David Beckham in there. Or they are sometimes used as the subject of the text or a vehicle for language to be learned. So you learn about present perfect and stuff through looking at Madonna's career. She has done this, she has done that, she has done the other. Again, these can still be used to teach English. And I think there were very good reasons to use them again. They're often recognizable. And I think also things are a spirit of the times. And I have a little pet theory that materials, people writing materials, are often shaped by the times in which they live. Materials in the 80s, and when I wasn't teaching in the 80s, but my mother was, we were living in the period of Reagan, of Thatcher, British and proud of it, that says. And lots of people would say, you're learning English to speak to British people or Americans. Did anyone used to say, they won't understand you if you say that in England? Now, when I live in Spain, I don't end up saying that anymore. Towards the end of the 90s, there was a big cultural shift in Britain. A new young prime minister was elected. Big changes as an end of the millennium. People are worried about the millennium. Do you remember Cool Britannia? There was a Cool Britannia movement. That Britain was hip, multicultural. It wasn't stuffy, old stuff. It was all hip, multicultural. The Spice Girls. And you didn't learn English to speak to English speakers or Americans. You learned English to kind of have access to this, to be a part of it. Learn English and you will understand the words to pop songs. Learn English and you will know what they're talking about in these movies and so on. But now, over the past 10 years, we're in an era of information. The idea of global English has been growing and is recognized for many purposes. We've gone through new wars. There's a much more heightened environmental awareness. And also, very important critically, is that there is a critical rethinking of America going on, which I think is going to be affecting the culture since the election of Barack Obama. Those are the times that I've been working in, and which explain a little bit why Global went 100% celebrity free. So I decided that I didn't want to use any of that in the book. Again, it's also because I think material that came out in these times was refreshing. Every time we had a change, the new material was refreshing and it was right for the time. And things change and we move on. And I think you still can teach, as I said, through all of those other things. So teachers have asked me when I say I went 100% celebrity free, they said, why do you hate celebrities so much? I don't hate celebrities. There's another practical reason, and that's because course books take so long to make now that the celebrities feel dated in this quick world. So have you noticed that? January 7th, 2008, I think it was, or 2007, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, a co-writer. He was in a terrible state. I said, what's wrong? And he said, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston have split up. And I said, so? Are you really that upset about it? He said, no, I don't really care, but I'm putting them in a book and I'm using it to teach married. And I've also had in previous material that I've written, I had a whole activity, not in a book, but on an online thing, of Michael Jackson and the Present Perfect. I was hoping that he would stay alive longer so he could have made so many records. Now it all has to be passed, so that's gone. So from a practical point of view as well, producing a book, it was difficult to do that. So that's what we did. We went 100% celebrity free in Global. So what have we put instead? Well, one of the things we put is a lot more of that work on images and culture from different places. But we also wanted to bring back high culture, literature. Okay? You could have classic literature and modern. Here's an example of classic, which you could see already. It was the best of times. The next line is, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. And the book is, of course, A Tale of Two Cities, very famous opening sentence. Now, this may have been criticized before for being fuddy-duddy, old, and what relevance does that have now? But I think some classical literature has relevance is classic because it does have relevance all through the years. And look at a task you could do with something like this, because in fact, some people say this extract could be about the times we live in now. Do you agree? Are we living in the best of times and worst of times? In fact, that extract was written at a turn of a century. We are close to a turn of a century now. Can you work with a pair and complete the sentence with your own ideas? Just one idea for each sentence. Okay, it is the best of times because this is the one that's always harder for people to say. It is the best of times because we have Twitter. Because we can easily meet people from all over the world. We have access. We have access to all the spiritual wisdom. My students will say, I've had students say something, it is the best of times because we live longer than our parents, we have more things, and so on. It is the worst of times because of Twitter. It's the worst of times, this is easier. The environment usually comes up here. I had one very cheeky student say, it is the worst of times because English class does not finish for another 20 minutes. So, but again, it's taking a little bit of something classic, like classic literature like that, and making it relevant for now. We don't have to stick with just classic literature. Here's something that we're using for upper intermediate. Wonderful text. What I want you to do is, I want you to read it. Well, I'll read it out for you. And I want you to think what the last line would be. At night, Miriam lay in her cot and wondered what his house in Herat was like. She wondered what it would be like to live with him, to see him every day. She would brew tea for him. She would sew on his missing buttons. They would take walks in Herat together in the vaulted bazaar where Jalil said you could find anything you wanted. They would ride in his car and people would point and say, now you decide in pairs what they point and say. People would point and say, how fortunate. People would point and say, what are they doing together? People would point and say, other people have said things like, people would point and say, we love Barack Obama. Maybe. People would point and say, yes, I've never seen her face. People would point and say, what a lovely couple. But what was interesting is people would point. There goes Jalil Khan and his daughter. And now you realize that there's a lot more going on in this story. She doesn't live with him. In fact, she's a daughter from another woman. And he lives with his family in the rich house, and she lives in another place, and he visits her every once in a while. But you can use this kind of text not only to explore different family relationships and think critically about that, it's also a wonderful vehicle for a certain grammar point. Can you see the grammar there? There's a nice grammar point that I see. Would. Yeah, would for hypothetical. These things don't happen. She's imagining they would.